project, our capstone, is via teleoperation of a G1 humanoid robot. My name is Kenzie.
I'm Alistair.
I'm Matthew.
And I'm Matt.
And we're all in our final year of mechatronics and robotics engineering at Queen's. So here is a photo of our system. So here on the left, we have this G1 humanoid robot that will be teleoperated. On the right is Matt, who is the operator and has the MetaQuest Pro on, the headset. So basically, anytime Matt moves his arms, the robot will then do whatever he's doing, including opening and closing his hands. This is the teleoperation pipeline that we were working on. So the problem that we wanted to address was occupations that have unsafe or hazardous situations or environments that a worker would have to go in. So the goal was to create this teleoperation pipeline to allow for a skilled worker to continue to do their work from a safe distance away from this environment or situation. Our scope, based on our project, our course line and our timeline, was constrained to motion of the top half. So we were just working on moving the arms. Our goal was to be able to consistently and comfortably move this pool noodle back and forth, as well as be able to manipulate it with ease and with low latency. So this is the entire pipeline of our project. So it starts with the human, our operator. So as the operator moves their hands, these position values are then sent to the headset that the operator is wearing. The MetaQuest Pro then takes these values and sends them over ROS and converts it into joint values for the robot to move. Then it gets to the G1 humanoid, which actuates and moves to the exact spot that the operator basically requested. So then on the humanoid side, there's a camera which shows a live feed that then sends it back to the MetaQuest Pro, so the operator can see in this virtual environment a live update feed for feedback and to be able to react. So the beginning starts with the hand tracking. So the left photo here is directly from the XR Hands package in Unity. Unity is the virtual environment that we're used, which you can see on the right is just a very basic view of that. So on the left here you see there's each of these individual nodes, and each of these nodes has 3 position coordinates and 3 orientation coordinates. So we can give that information over. We primarily focus on the palm joints, that way as the hands move we can get the most accurate representation, especially because the G1 humanoid only has 3 fingers. We also then, the cameras on the headset track and estimate these joints, which we then send over to our Unity.
Yeah, so piggybacking off of what Kenzie just said, this is kind of a look from within the VR headset. So what you can see here is the user is able to see live feedback of where the program thinks that their hands are, as well as the robot's hands, and so they can see its task space and the sort of things it's doing. And so what we're doing here with the headset is it's going to be publishing the hand position data through ROS, which we can then send that as a sort of desired position and orientation to the robot. And as you can see here, we also have gestures. So the user is performing a fist on their left hand. This is going to send a close message to the robot's end effectors, as well as on the right, when they open their hand into a palm gesture, it'll send an open command. And then we'll sort of something experimental we've been working on is a hologram video feed. So by using we're using an Intel RealSense camera, instead of projecting it onto just a flat plane, we combine it with the depth data, and we get sort of like this hologram immersive viewing experience, which can increase depth perception, spatial relationships, make some tasks easier to do. And we also have implemented arm length calibration, where the user is able to basically project their arm length onto the robot for users with differing arm lengths.
So here's sort of an overview of our control system, the state diagram. At the top, the hand positions come in, that comes in over ROS, which is our data distribution system, that then calculates the joint angles for the humanoid. So it takes that one position in space, does the inverse kinematics, and you get a set of joint positions. It then runs through a nonlinear optimization function. Basically, all this does is allow us to tweak values a little bit more, so the robot can prioritize translation a little bit more, maybe orientation, or some safety features that I'll get on later. It goes through a smoothing filter, so it does a moving window average of about the 5 last joint values. Because what you can imagine is if the operator is moving in real time, the robot might not be able to get to their exact previous position. So averaging these values out reduces a lot of jitter in the humanoid side. Finally, it gets published to the G1 humanoid and over cycling media. So looking at our safety here, we've got a sort of visualization on the right. We notice the elbows of the humanoid tended to want to collide with the chest. And that was both going to damage the humanoid as well as just long-term inconvenient for operation. So to make it easier for the user to not have to worry about it, there's a critical no entry zone inside the cylinder. So if the elbow goes inside of that 16.5 centimeter radius at any point, it's penalized heavily in the cost function and the robot will not choose that position. Additionally, there's a safe shutdown, so the robot comes down before canceling, and an e-stop. So e-stop works to immediately damp all motors. This is our we don't want to enter something, prioritizing safety, but less on the robot's potential drop on itself. The safe shutdown prevents that. And additionally, on our hands, we've got our grippers here. We're sort of working on a binary system right now. So open and close. What can happen if you're trying to close on an object and it doesn't close on it perfectly, like in this scenario of the clue, or maybe the object's too big, the torque values get too high. This can most damage the motors on the robot as well as damage the object we're picking up. So we have the torque protection system. So when the torque goes too high, it holds its current position and it doesn't open again until the user opens it. So now we're going to look at our results here, the video of it operating in real time. All right, you've got the robot here on the right, you've got Matt, our operator, on the left, and then up in the center you can see the real-time view of what Matt's seeing in the headset. You'll see we're passing the noodle back and forth, and as he passes it here, the depth perception is a little bit challenging, but you can see that Matt's still able to readjust and grip it properly as he passes it back and forth. And then one other thing to note here, you'll see it in a moment, is that we chose strategically to track based off head position, not global position. So if Matt turns his head, then the hand position will change. And so what you'll see is in a moment, Matt's going to lift his arm up, and the headset, he's going to look up at the same time. So the humanoid's arm won't move, because relative to the headset, your hand position didn't change. This allows you as an operator to strategically look and reach positions that the humanoid can reach, but you can't as a human, because the humanoid does have greater dexterity behind its body.
Yeah, and so just to tie everything back in, we just want to remind everybody the purpose of our project, why we're doing this, and why we're here today. We really want to ensure that a highly skilled tradesperson can seamlessly operate this G1 humanoid and not be interfered by the existence of this teleoperation system. Now, in order to double check this, we've established some tests that we'd like to show you. The first test is one that's very familiar. It's the one that is seen in the video previously, passing the pool noodle between hands. This demonstrate, we had two users demonstrate this task. User A, who had limited to no VR experience, and user B, who had used VR, but mainly for things like video games and watching shows. As can be seen on the graph on your left, user A was only able to do it 3 times. A fail is considered when they couldn't fully grasp or they dropped the noodle. User B could only perform it 4 times. Then, after a short teaching session, which included tips and general advice for operating the G1, their results shot up. User A was able to successfully perform the task 7 times continuously, and user B was able to do it 9 times, with 10 being our perfect optimal goal. What we really want to establish here is the learnability of this process. Although it might not have been very intuitive to begin with, it was very, very simple to teach users. Also, something to point out in terms of quality of life for the user, 180 milliseconds is the amount of latency that is perceivable for the average human. Our goal was to keep it under that threshold. And the graph on the right demonstrates that we have succeeded in that goal, just pushing past 120. Now, for our future work, what we would do if we had a little bit of more time and a little bit more resources. First thing we'd like to do is get this thing moving. But when we want to implement walking, we're going to need some external hardware, something that can have a fixed position that the headset can then relate to. Another thing we're looking to implement is non-local teleoperation. Right now, in order to teleoperate the robot, you and the robot must be on the same network. What we'd like to try to do is to set up some basic servers or some other communication protocol so that someone in, say, Vancouver could teleoperate the robot even if it was in Ottawa. And thirdly, we'd like to implement precise hand control. As shown previously, there are a lot of spots on your hand that are tracked. And if we can precisely communicate those values to the robot, the seamless integration between the skilled operator and the G1 humanoid will very much come together. Thank you very much. Is there any
Question from the judges first.
Yeah, if I could ask, opening question. What was your starting point with the robot? Like, was the robot, who manufactured it, and what was the starting point, and what was your finishing point with the robot?
So the robot for itself, is like a finished product from Unitree, so it's a Chinese manufacturer. They make a lot of robots. It has an onboard computer. It has all those grippers. It can walk. The arms are useless out of the box. And so our pipeline was connecting the headset to the humanoid, as well as actually providing action to the arms. Because out of the box, it's like your controller, like an Xbox controller, and you can walk around, but its arms are stuck inside permanently.
Okay.
During the video part, I expected to see sensors on the human's hands. Didn't see any sensors. Why is that?
Yeah, so, so you mean like pressure sensors on the hands here?
Human.
Oh, yeah, so, the hand tracking is entirely done with camera vision, from the headset. You can see there's two little cameras there, and those are kind of operating the hands, which you can see, in this photo especially. So, it's estimating all, I believe it's 24 joints, within the hand based on just those two cameras. So it's entirely done with camera vision. Which is also good for the usability, as we're able to grasp, open. It makes the gestures quite a bit easier. We can use.
Okay, I'll pick safety. You talked about a little bit about safety in your discussion, so you were talking primarily about safety of the robot, and your whole concept is safety. I noticed that there were people walking around here. There are going to be people in any sort of robotic situation. Have you considered the safety of people in the vicinity of the robot at all, and how have you done that if you have?
So when we were working in Ingenuity, there was many people had access to emergency stops, especially the person who was running the main program. And also everyone in Ingenuity is familiar with robotics and have been sort of briefed on the situation. In using this actually, other than training, where it would be in an extra safe environment where everyone's very aware and also the robot can't move its legs, it would also be in a situation that we wouldn't really be having humans. That's kind of the goal of it, is to keep it in those. So there's definitely
So you don't have any engineered safety for humans at this point?
other than what comes with Unitree.
So there's the built-in over torque. The force it can max put out is below what's damaging to a human. It hurts, but it isn't it's going to really hurt.
Okay.
And so it's mostly engineered position, you shouldn't be able to get into the area of the robot, was more of our focus, instead of, all right, what safety does the robot have besides the emergency stop, let's shut down. So those sort of sensors to detect breaches in those fields.
Great.
Any questions from the audience?
You mentioned potentially wanting to deploy this in some real world scenario to do some tasks in place of humans. I was kind of wondering, what are some target tasks that you would want this robot to operate for?
Yeah, so originally our big thing was going to be vegetable picking. There's some different types of I guess vegetable growing technology that are more undesirable for humans to be put into, mainly because it can be dark, it can be full of manure, and it's just an unpleasant environment. But in terms of safety critical spots, we see a lot of these G1 or humanoid robots being employed within nuclear facilities. So dealing and handling nuclear waste and completely removing the human operator from this sort of system.
Cool, thanks.
Just based on what we saw in the presentation, the overall field of view from the headset itself seems pretty limited to just your hands. And like for future applications, is there any look into like, you know, using a different headset with like better field of view, maybe adding more joint measurements on like, you know, further up your arms, and like, what would you say about like something like that?
Honestly, the field of view, like, I don't think we're really testing it to its limits here, but like, the headset can like track your arms, like, I'd say about to here, like,
Okay.
like, yeah, maybe even like 180, like even when we were trying to do tests where we put our hand behind our back, like, you really had to take your hand, like, and take it back here. And ultimately, because we're projecting the arm length onto the G1, really, anything that we can do with our arms, the humanoid can do, because it actually has more degrees of freedom than our arms normally do. Like, it has more, I believe, one more on the wrist, one more in the shoulder, something like that. Like, it can actually get to more, like, positions and orientations than we can with ours. Like, the camera tracking on the, like, the hand tracking on the headset's actually quite impressive.
And then ideally, I think long-term, it would be more immersive for us to put the head, so the head's fixed right now. It would be great to put our head long-term, to put the camera on like 2 servos, so when you turn your head, your camera view turns with you, so you can get a larger view of the workspace. Because yeah, the field view in the headset's quite large, but the picture out of the camera that's by default is a little bit limiting currently.
Thanks. We call it there?